The abandoned hospital. The following is what my upperclassmen personally experienced. It happened around 4 to 5 years ago when he and his friend went to explore an abandoned hospital. I'll call him A and his friend K. They thought about going there for a while, but since K was moving away the following day, they wanted to do something memorable. Nothing out of the ordinary happened there, but it still managed to frighten them. Just as they were about to go home, A thought it would be a good idea to go back and find something they could remember that day by. They each found a syringe for themselves and left. 2 weeks had passed when A's phone rang out of the blue. The caller said, "I'm an employee at such and such hospital. Would you mind bringing back that syringe you borrowed?" When A heard that, he froze. The person on the other end claimed to be from the hospital A and K visited 2 weeks earlier. He immediately said that he'd go back and return it. But they said there was no need. When A asked why, they said in a low voice, "I'm in front of your apartment complex." The instant A grabbed the syringe, his phone rang a second time. "There's no need to leave your house. I'm right behind you." Too frightened to turn his head, he threw the syringe out of his window. When he looked outside, he saw a man standing below. He was covered, wearing long white robes that were full of blood. Half of his face was gone. He plucked his syringe from up off the ground, looked up at A and smiled wide. The next second, he was gone. A has since sworn never to set foot in another abandoned building. Story 2. On a country road late at night. In October last year, I was taking the same country road I always do when I'm returning home from work. It has nice rice paddies on either side, so it's nice and narrow, and there are no street lights about halfway in. Though it was pitch black that night, I was driving at a considerable speed. I'd been hoping that I wouldn't run into any cars coming from the opposite direction when I saw this pale skin on my left-hand side. Though it happened in less than a second, I was able to see her appearance so vividly. The wrinkles on her face, the color of her clothes, the bouquet she was holding behind her back. I was caught by surprise and slammed on the brakes. I looked in my rearview mirror. There was nothing but the night. I thought I hit her and began to panic, but I realized that I didn't feel the car hit anything. I forced myself not to dwell on it, seeing as there was nothing I could do, and I went home. The next day, I told the story to my uncle, who lives right next to that old country road. He told me that there was an old lady with dementia who would occasionally go into the fields and take whatever she wanted from there. He totally convinced me. I thought that she might have been out in the fields because that was precisely the time of year when cosmos flowers would come into bloom. She most likely wanted to grab the flowers late at night when no one would be out, and she would hide them behind her back, just in case. I would have ended it on that note had it just been an old lady trying to steal flowers late at night. But I went back to my uncle's house recently and he told me something new. Apparently, an old lady died the year before in an accident. She was hit by a car. What's more is it happened in the same area I was driving in that October night. I wonder if she wanted to find a bouquet that she could remember herself by. Even now, I remember her so clearly. Story 3. The thing that came from the deep. I don't exactly remember how it came up, but one day I found out my coworker stubbornly refuses to go to the ocean. Curiously enough, he didn't want to talk about it when I asked why, so I eventually coerced him into telling his story. The following is what he told me. I've done the best I can to organize his drunken ramblings. When I was still in college, I went out on a road trip with one of my good friends. We left after finals, so it must have been around winter break. I call it a road trip, but my friend brought his dog Taro along with the two of us, and we drove aimlessly around the country. A couple of days after we left, we found ourselves at a seemingly deserted village that was wedged between a mountain and the ocean. Our gas was running low and the sky was just beginning to darken. This made us anxious. We followed the road along the coast searching for a gas station, which we found at the edge of town and that had closed for a long time. My friend and I got out of the car and went to the back door out of desperation. Something hung lazily from the eaves of the house. It was a bamboo strainer. I remembered that I didn't want to be a bother, but seeing as we needed gas, I rang the buzzer. "Hello, is anyone home? Can someone fill up my gas tank?" There was only the hint of someone's presence through the glass, but they were refusing to answer. "Please don't ignore us. I can see you in there." Try ringing the doorbell again. "Hello, can you please help us?" Whoever was in there yielded to our persistent yelling, and the light above the door turned on. We couldn't see the shadow of a person facing us through the glass. "Who's there?" "We need gasoline." "We're closed today." Before I could say anything, a gruff voice interrupted me. "I'm sorry, but could you just..." "No, I said we're closed today." There was no use trying the guy anymore, so we decided to head back to the car and wait until tomorrow. This is why I hate the country. Well, there's nothing we can do about it now. We'll sleep here tonight. We can ask them for gas again first thing in the morning. So we drove around the village looking for a place to stop our car. As we drove through the small town, we noticed that all the gates, from every small shop to every house, were firmly locked shut, and that bamboo strainers and baskets hang from every building. Is there some sort of festival going on? If that were true, you'd think it wouldn't be so quiet. The wind's so strong, I just can't stand it. Ugh, we can park over there. A long stone staircase started out at the beach and cut straight out through the mountainside, leading to a small shrine. We found a space just large enough for our van in front of the torii gate at the edge of the sand, besides some hedges that would keep us out of the cold sea breeze. By the time we parked and pulled our blankets, the ocean had already become nearly pitch black. We mumbled our good nights and we wrapped ourselves in our blankets, ready to fall asleep. A few hours later, I was awakened by Taro's low snarling and powerful, yet raw stench of the sea. The normally docile dog was impossible to calm down. His body was stiff and his fangs flinted in the back seat. I looked over and saw that my friend was awake too, eyes frozen, staring out into the darkness. The ocean gleamed dully in the moonlight, its waters unusually still. Something stirred gray sands. "What do you think that is?" my friend whispered. "I have no idea." At first, it looked like a metal pipe or a log that poked out of the water. Then it squirmed upwards like a giant snake until it towered over us. All was covered in a tangible silence. Most of it was veiled in black fumes or smoke, which made it difficult to see its body. There was a slow, painful ringing in my ears that wouldn't stop, and the foul odor became so strong it nearly made me vomit. One end of it remained in the water, and the other stretched across the beach to the nearest house. It gazed long into one of the strainers, with what might have been a thick, black face, and patiently crept to another. We weren't normally frightened easily, but after even one look, my body became heavy and my mind was filled with dread. "Hey, start the car." My friend's shaky voice brought me back to my senses. Somehow, I managed to raise my arm to the ignition and turn the key. The sound of the engine resonated through the night, shattering delicate silence. For some reason, I felt that I absolutely must not look at its direction. I listened to my instincts and slammed down at the acceleration. My friend's dog went dead, barking, snarling so loud that it made my ears ring. And then he let out a sharp wheeze, as though he had been kicked in the stomach. Taro? My friend, without thinking, looked behind us and gasped, as if all air had been sucked out of him. You idiot! You're not supposed to look back. I grabbed his shoulder with my free hand and pushed him back into his seat. His face was frozen in terror, and his eyes rolled to the back of his head. I started sobbing as I kept my foot on the acceleration. I drove until I ran out of gas. I admitted my friend, who was still out of it, to a hospital in a faraway town, where I heard he slept the entire week with a high fever. Months after the incident, if I would even mention anything about the trip, he would get unreasonably angry. We lost touch after he graduated. His dog, Taro, became violent, biting other people and dogs if they got too close, so he eventually had to be put down. I have the feeling that I'll never know what that thing was, and I'll do anything I can to avoid the ocean. That was all my coworker had to say. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. These 3 stories were translated from Japanese, and I found them all on Reddit. So, a little fact about the last story, I was curious about what the whole bamboo strainer thing was about. So, I did a bit of research, and it turns out it's actually customary to place bamboo baskets and strainers to ward off evil spirits. So, whatever was chasing those guys was probably evil. Um, Again, thank you guys so much for watching. This is my first video. I hope to make other videos in the future, maybe related to horror or something related to nostalgia. I don't know, but look forward to it. Please subscribe and like if you can, and please comment because I'm so excited to see them. Thank you so much, and have a nice day, guys.